Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the Property Pod. My name's Libby, and today I'm joined by Sam from Carter Dawes. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on. And today we're going to discuss everything you need to know about inheritance tax. So Sam, tell me, what exactly is inheritance tax?
Okay, so in simple terms, the value of everything you own when you pass away is taxed by the government. That's inheritance tax. It's not taxed if it goes to your wife, but if you leave it to anybody else, it's potentially taxed, and that's inheritance tax.
Mm-hmm. And who pays inheritance tax?
That's a fairly complicated question, but again, simply, if the people who receive the assets, so if you leave your property to somebody, they're the person that pays the inheritance tax.
Mm-hmm. And when do you have to pay inheritance tax?
So after you die, your estate goes through something called probate, which takes maybe a year, 18 months. At the end of that process, the people that inherited the assets will have to pay inheritance tax on them.
Mm-hmm. And how can I calculate how much inheritance tax I have to pay? Is there a way of doing that easily, or is it quite a complicated sort of area?
It's, in the simplest of cases, it's simple. In the most complex of cases, it's very, very complex. During that probate process, your assets will be given a valuation. So if, let's say, that valuation is $500,000, on that amount, you will pay 40% inheritance tax. You do get what we call nil rate band, which is an amount that you're allowed to leave behind that is tax-free. So it's anything above those nil rate bands is taxed at 40%. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of different complex issues surrounding that, which make that calculation more complicated, but that's in simplest terms, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And how do I go about inheritance tax planning?
Okay, so that's, again, in the simplest form, you give your assets away, so you don't own them anymore. But it gets very, very complex. It's something that if you've got concerns about, unless you're very knowledgeable, you would need to speak to somebody in the professions that could help you with that. You get taxed on whatever was you owned on death. They also include anything you gave away in the previous 7 years. Mm-hmm. So if you want to plan for avoiding inheritance tax, you need to have started 7 years prior.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's why I say the simplest thing to do is to give it away. It's a bit flippant, really, because then you don't own it anymore. Mm-hmm. There are more complex schemes that the government allows. So the use of trust planning, the use of business relief investments, that can help you plan without giving away full control of your money. But in essence, it's a case of you need to reduce that valuation on your death. And yeah, there are 101 different ways to do that, but it's a case of, if you want to start inheritance tax planning, you will need to be gifting money away in one way or another. So it's no longer completely yours. Otherwise, it's going to be in that probate valuation. It will be taxed.
Do you think people need to get like a will before they start doing the inheritance tax planning? Like, is that the best way? Is that the sort of traditional way that people do it, or?
A will is not strictly related to inheritance tax planning.
Oh, okay.
People should have a will anyway. Mm-hmm. So the will tells the government or the people dealing with your probate, this is how I want my assets to be given away. Mm-hmm. It can be used as part of inheritance tax planning. Mm-hmm. So, for example, you might want to leave assets to your children, and you might want to leave assets to a charity, or you might want to leave assets to friends. And within your will, you can use different clauses or different instructions to direct who's paying that inheritance tax, or you can use it to help reduce inheritance tax for certain people. If you were going to do any in-depth inheritance tax planning, you would need a new will, but it wouldn't be where you started.
No.
If that makes sense.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much for coming on today. That's been great.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. If you did enjoy this, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.